Bible, taking you to the Word. Okay? So that all moves in there. But now, to that, the other morning I'm getting ready, and I'm getting some time with the Lord, and he says, John 5. I'm going, okay. He had me hang out there quite a bit last year. And so I go back into John 5. Well, it kind of makes sense because John 5 is about a healing, right? So I am the Lord your healer. I get that. But meanwhile, he's taking me in there, and what grabs you if you read it is it's like a hit and run miracle. I mean, seriously. The setup in there, how many of you read John 5? Some of you got the ping, some of you didn't. Okay. It's a hit and run miracle. He goes in, he does it, and he disappears. Yeah. He goes in, he knows this guy's been there, he asks him one question, he gives him one command, and he's... And you know why we know that? Because the religion police get a hold of the guy who's healed, and they want to know who it was. He goes, I have no clue. Right? In and out. It's a hit and run, and so there's sort of a before and after thing of a hit and run thing. We're going to just spend some time here because this connects in with this whole area. Joel, can you read that? Loudly.
After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water.
Keep going, yep.
For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years.
Okay? This is the setup. This is just setting the stage. So let me just look at a few of these things. First of all, it's in Jerusalem, right? When is it in Jerusalem? What's going on? What's going on in Jerusalem? Hello? You were all here for the reading of this, right? What does it say? After this, there was a... Oh, okay! Bing, 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 bing. Wow! Okay. Some of you, at least if you're going to fall asleep, can have the grace to snore so that we all know it, rather than sitting there with your eyes propped open. Okay. Come on. Okay, so it's Jerusalem and it's a feast. Most scholars will agree that this is one of the 3 major feasts that was called because of the way that John identifies it. I've even found that I think there are more that would say it's probably the Feast of Pentecost. But there are 3 times a year when every male 20 years and older had to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So it's in Jerusalem, and what's going on? There's a feast, which means it is overloaded. It is bustling with people. Okay? And now there is a place there near the sheep gate. What does the sheep gate remind you of? Why is this important?
I am the shepherd.
I am the shepherd. Good. When else is Jesus going to come through the sheep gate?
Passover?
Just in preparation for Passover. Pesach. So he's going to, in preparation on Lamb Selection Day, actually, he's going to come in what everybody calls the triumphal entry, entering in down near what is called the sheep gate, because that's where the sheep would have been brought in, that were being brought in for the ritual slaughter. It's tying in again about the sacrifice of Jesus. John is connecting the dots and saying, pay attention, pay attention. It's a pool called Bethesda. What does Bethesda mean?
House of...
What?
Healing?
Not healing. House of mercy. House of mercy or grace. Now I want to show you one other thing. That Hebrew can be accented differently from that if you're taking the Aramaic of it and then the Hebrew, and it can be the house of disgrace, which is really interesting because who are all here?
The disgraced.
Okay, all the sick. And how were they viewed in that society? Sympathetically or what?
No.
Not particularly. Look down. Why?
They were cursed of God.
Cursed of God, yeah. The disfavored. So it makes sense that this pool might be called the Pool of Bethesda. There's some that argue that it was actually, you see, this is a recreation of a museum piece that's in Jerusalem about these 2 pools. They weren't even sure that John was right. They were wondering about it. And then Archaeologists found this pool that was there that would have dated back to the right time. It would have been 2 pools, and there are, by the way, 5 porticos or 5 porches. What is 5 the number of?
Grace.
Grace again, okay? 5 in Hebrew is the letter He, which deals with the presence, the Spirit of God. All these things, grace, sheep gate, pool. And then we got this little angel action going down. And I won't get into all the debates. Some scholars are going to say, that doesn't even belong in the Bible. Angel action. What's the angel action? What? Oh, angle. Okay.
Pivot.
Pivot. Yes. Yeah, pivot.
Which angle?
Okay. Everybody's suddenly a nitpicking scholar. Okay.
So did this happen?
Just identify it.
Any kind of, any evidence or historical evidence that there really was a stirring and that somebody did get healed?
Well, I don't know. The fact that it's in the Bible gives me a little bit of thing, but apart from that, Richard, what can I tell you? I will tell you that when they dug this up, Richard, part of what they found was a mosaic of an angel on it. And it's one of the reasons why they thought that this was an angel with a tip of the wing in the water. So there's a lot of disagreement amongst scholars whether that should be in or not, okay? Because there's a verse and a half that they debate about whether or not that should be in there. But I think it is.
So it's not a parable as a teaching story.
Yeah,
It's actually.
It's telling. There we go.
Parable,
It's a story that John has brought down about Jesus, and he's bringing these details together. So there was some manifestation, and the water would bubble, and then there were healings. And why do we know there are healings? Because we're going to see in the next part of it, the guy himself who's been there will testify to the fact. So either he's very misinformed, which is possible, or he's been there, tried that. And the way he narrates it, it sounds like he's been there and tried that, and he hasn't been able to catch it yet. This is all the context for it, but I want you to get one other context point, and we don't get it till later. Oh, this is my thing. It's sort of a divine lottery. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to define it.
It's like one person, right?
One person. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, congratulations.
That's why they were all waiting.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a feast now, so everybody who had anybody who was sick is brought them up to Jerusalem, and they're all sitting around there waiting at the pool, and probably have brought an attendant with them. Okay, Mary, you take his legs, John, take his arms, and at the count of 3, when the angel comes, we throw him over those 3 people that are trying to hobble in. Incoming! Okay? But it's a kind of an interesting setting. Anyway, I've seen a structure like this actually down in England. I'll show you a picture in a second. That's dated from the same time in the 1st century in Bath, where they have the Roman baths. And there's some question whether or not these actually were Roman structures that were set up as healing pools. But regardless, we have this connect of the dots with Jesus and with the angel and with this guy. Where is all this deal with? The fact that the guy's got to get healed, but he's looking in the wrong place. And there's another divine pivot that's got to happen for him. Okay? Are you with me so far? Okay. By the way, this is all actually one big setup because it's all around this issue, and that's Sabbath. We don't get this detail until later. Jesus could have gone into that pool any day of the week. Okay. So there are 5 classifications of people. Now just see if maybe there's some sort of connection for you, maybe not physically, but maybe the physical thing describes some sort of spiritual or emotional state. First one, impotent. That would be without strength or powerless. Any place in your life you feel without strength or powerless. Okay, we'll keep going. Number 2, blind. The word originally in the Greek here has to do with an opaqueness or a smokiness, but what's very fascinating to me is the root word behind it means to be proud. In other words, you're putting up a smoke screen. Okay? So I'll just connect the dots here behind blindness, including spiritual blindness, and Jesus will point this out, by the way, in John 9. Because you say, we see, you are blind. He'll say that to the Pharisees who are coming after him. Because remember, in John 9 is when he heals the man born blind from birth. Okay, number 3. halting. This word means actually to walk with a limp or crippled, but it's very interesting. The King James has the halting. Any of you have a problem with halting? Okay? I don't mean even in your giddy up. I mean in your moving forward in life. Halting, getting stuck, procrastinating. Next, withered. That means dried up. Any hopes dried up? Any part of you sort of just dried up inside? And then finally, the waiting, which is to wait for, look for, tarry for, and expect. 5 classifications of these people that were around. And Jesus is going to move into the midst of that. And they've all got this hope, and all this hope is anchored where? At the water, in the pool. They're looking for the lottery. Okay, come on, number 351444445, right? How many people play the lottery on a regular, not here, but I mean out there, all right? I look at those jackpots going, okay, if they're going to pay out that much, that means they have to have brought in, wow. And so your chances are extraordinarily rare. But hope. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is it said there was a man there who had been there for how long? 38 years. This is a shelling of a 38 special, by the way, so I want to know, why 38? Why would John know that, want you to know that? Why is that important? Why didn't he say almost 40 years? 38. It does make a big hole, okay. Well, 38 is a big hole, but it's a big hole here in Israel. 38 years passed from the time we left Kadesh Barnea until we crossed the Zered Valley. By then, that entire generation of fighting men had perished from the camp as the Lord had sworn to them. Everybody talks about Israel wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. They didn't actually wander for 40. They were led for the better part of 2, and then they wandered for 38. 38 is the number that indicates the time when Israel was lost out there and couldn't get the traction. They lost sight of the hope that was real. Do you get where this? Now this references back to John 1:1. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. And guess what? The same thing's going to happen. Jesus is going to pop into this scene with true healing, and his own will receive him not. Even the guy who gets healed is a weenie. Sorry, I don't know how, I don't know the technical definition of that, right? But we won't even get into all that. Okay, so this. Who can read next? Jackie?
Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time. He said to him, "Do you want to be made well?"
Okay. Hannah's laughing. Why are you laughing, Hannah?
Because it's like, well, duh.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Thank you. That was an honest answer, See, sometimes you guys read this thing and you want to, we got to get real profound here. If you're the guy and you've been there for 38 years and you're stretched out on this mat. By the way, how well do you know this mat? You've been laying on this mat now for years. Do you know what do you do when you're laying down in the first century? Not that you really know it's the first century yet, because Jesus, anyway, okay. But you're laying down in there and you're around the pool. What do you look at? You don't have reading material. You can't. Well, let me just text. Right? I mean, what do? You stare at things and you study and you look at the wall and the ceilings and you go, did that water just move? And you get to know your mat really well and you ping off the ants that are coming on it, and you just sort of like, oh, sorry, But this question comes up, do you want to be well? And yeah, I think the first answer would be like, okay, let me not say what I'm thinking. No, I'm here because I like the sun in the shade under the portico. But it's a really important question. Keep going, Jackie.
The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath.
Kaboom. Really quick, right? So, I've got something else on this I'm going to go by. I'll pick that up in a second. But he says, do you want? I want you to get this question. There's a question about desire. Jesus asks this a number of times. He goes to the two blind guys who are yelling his name out like crazy. Jesus! I told the shepherd. And he goes up, what do you want? I mean, to me, I'd go like, ah. Well, Jesus, oh, you're over there. Okay, well, right? But he asks. He wants to hear the desire. When John the Baptist says to his disciples, the Lamb of God, and two of them start to follow, Jesus turns around and says, what do you want? Want to see where you live? He is asking for desire. So here's what I want to pop into you, that this is the question about the area you keep seeking him about, whether it's healing or finances or relationship or whatever, and he will pop you and say, what do you want? Because you keep looking at the same pool. Is that really what you want? And this part, to be made well, to be made whole, to be made complete. Do you really desire that? Or is it something more, right? We typically want to be enabled to just keep doing whatever the hell we want to do. Jesus is asking, do you want to be made whole? Because there's an accountability with that comes. Right now, you got a lot of excuses down here, buddy. You don't have to work. You don't have to worry about a wife or probably about kids or anything else. All you got to worry about is getting your space next to the pool. And the worldview looks very, very different from down there. But this guy answers in a very pragmatic, and what does he blame?
Speed.
Right. What's very interesting is Jesus doesn't say, why are you not well? Do you want? And so this guy immediately comes in with a whole excuse as to why he can't be. In other words, don't look at me. I'm here. I'm being religious. I am lined up where the angel can come down and I can get in the water. Not my fault, because there's no one here to help me. You know, if my circumstances were different and I had an assistant, because he thought Jesus was offering to help, I think, get him into the water. Yeah. He doesn't know who he's talking to. It's a stranger. He doesn't even know when he's asked later. He doesn't know who Jesus was. There's no connect the dots. And so there's no faith on this guy's part, just so you know. There's no faith to trigger anything for Jesus to work with, because he doesn't even know who Jesus is. And his faith is the fact, in that water, if I could get in the pool, I'd be fine. And so when the water is stirred up. So Richard, to your point, while some would contest with earlier things about the angel and say that verse doesn't belong, this verse is not contested by anybody. All the scholars say this is what he said. Well, this guy is very firm on the fact that when I try and the water's stirred up, somebody gets in before me. That to me indicates something's going on. And so while the water's stirred up, while I am coming, another steps down. So do you get this sense of while I am coming? All these times I've tried to run up the altar, I've tried to run into this place, I've tried to run into the hospital, I've tried to find the right doctor, do this right thing, plug this thing in, do this, do that, and every time I get there, it's, I missed the lottery again. Some of you are getting this, some are not, but that's okay. Did he get in the water? No. He doesn't get in the water. Because Jesus, and I want to kick into that, right? Because Jesus just gives him a command. Threefold command. Just speaks to him. We'll look at that in a second, but I want to go back here because, you know, sometimes it's just more comfortable to stay where you are. You know, the view from those seats is different, but sometimes it's just kind of nice because you can just kind of hang out there, okay? Being flat, being low. But you know, the view is always a little bit askew from that place, right? You can't see it the same way. And you know, when you're down there though, but you get very comfortable. And you know, I showed you those other animals because they're really cute, so let's follow up.
Oh my goodness.
It's a big pig in the slop.
Oh my goodness.
Because the word, when Jesus saw him lying there, means to lie down, by implication be sick, but specifically means to recline at a meal. The guy is eating down there, but he's not eating food. What is he eating?
Straw.
Well, that's the pig. I'm talking about the lame guy. Sorry, connect the dots here for me. Hey, what's the guy eating? Pity? This is the way it is. Hopelessness. 38 years. This ain't going to change. I got nobody to help me. Every time I do.
Giving up.
He's given up. I'm not sure why he's even in the pool other than the fact that, hey, at least it looks like I'm trying, right? Do you know how many people are going to church in that kind of state? Hoping to win the divine lottery? Oh, please, 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 let it be a word for me, right? They want to get picked out by a prophet or be prayed over by somebody or something in the circumstances to change. Oh, God, if this would just, and Jesus is going to step in and say, do you want to be free from this? Are you willing to pivot? And it's hard. But Jesus is saying, I need to elevate you because I got to get your perspective out of this and I need to get you up here. Let's do another animal. Bird's eye view we talk about, right? The view is very different from up here. The perspective. Now, the thing about a bird is it can go down there, but it can move up. You have the same capability, yes or no? You can stay down there and the world looks like a bunch of soles, but there's the soles of shoes and hairy legs. So, what's your pool? If you are the guy, if we're all the guy, what's your pool? What's that thing where you kind of keep going back to, you keep looking at, and you're just weary because even though other people seem to get in and out of that pool and get well, you don't. If I'm not reading anybody's mail here, I'm reading my own, just so you know. That deferred hope, that, oh Lord, I thought. This is actually a picture of the Roman baths in England that were built around the same time, which is why I'm pretty sure that's what that original structure would have looked like. Very similar with the porches around it and the pool water. So the question is, where it's a place, a pool is often the place where your hope sort of simmers, but it's out of reach. Do you get that? It'll bubble up. Am I being too abstract here, or are some of you getting it? I needed some nods. Okay. Oh man, it's already, I got this late. And so, is there a hope that you have for affirmation, to be affirmed for who you are, what you do? This is some of me, right? I got out of the church long ago saying, okay, I don't want to do anything with that, right? I was in business for 25 years. No desire. 6 years ago, a guy goes, oh, we're going to end that. Put you back in here. But do you know that I kind of keep wanting, I touch around with the institutional church because there's part of me that still wants to be affirmed by that. Oh yes, come back, do this, right? So I go there and I get a little bit of hopes that something's going to happen, then whew, God's showing me, that's your pool, Stephen. That's your pool. And guess what? Pool's closed. Now, he gave me a long word, and I don't think I'll read it to you tonight. I may give you a gist of some of the things. What are you looking at as your hope for healing? It can be medical, it can be financial. Where is it? Is there something out there? If this will change and somebody will help me get in there, then it will be all right. No, there's something more, and it's going to be a connect directly with Jesus. We just keep putting something intermediary in between. This is not about a pivot left or right as much as it's about a pivot up, by the way. It's still a pivot. And then the question is has your pool become a cesspool? In other words, has it become a reason to stay in the state you're in? Do you understand? He could basically argue with Jesus. What do you mean you want to know if I want to be well? Of course I want to be well. Don't be a moron. But I can't be well because da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Of course I want to go and start this, but I can't because da-da-da-da-da-da.
Stuck in his own misery.
Pardon me?
It's like stuck in your own misery.
Stuck in your own misery. And now I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm not a co-creator with God, I'm a victim. And as long as I stay in there. And so this becomes a trap, and often it's an old season that has gone by. But I just want to point this out. This is all signs of somebody picking a fight. And this is basically what Jesus does. He goes and he picks a fight with the status quo in Jerusalem. I'm going to make this point real quickly. He will pick a fight in the status quo in you. Don't just think this is about you and maybe something in a church structure, because you know the rest of the story, right? That the guy gets healed and he's carrying his mat, and what happens? Who's he get confronted by? John just says the Jews, right? And it's, you can't do that. That's against the law. Who? Well, the guy who healed me told me take up your mat. Who was the guy? No idea. And so Jesus finds him later in the temple. So the guy has returned to the temple. He's gone to the temple now. He's from the pool to the temple, right? He's made that move to go there and to praise God. And Jesus finds him and says, don't sin anymore or something worse will happen. And this guy is so filled with joy that what does he do? He goes and he rats out Jesus. And as a result, you will read, and so from that day they determined to kill Jesus. And it just ramps up. Jesus picked this fight, just so you know. He could have gone in there the day before or the day after and not caused a ruckus at all. He picks a guy. He not only heals him, he says, he doesn't just say stand up and walk. What does he do? Stand up, take up your mat, and walk. He gives this guy a specific instruction because he is picking a fight. So I'm just going to tell you, Jesus will pick a fight with that thing in you that is determined to stay in old law. He will pick a fight. And he might use me to do it, okay? Or somebody else. So he used June probably, actually. Or Joel. Jesus said to him, rise. This is the pivot. The Greek word is related to the idea of collecting your faculties, okay? It's like waking, getting enough of a head together. And so it's to waken, to rouse from sleep, sitting or lying, to get up from disease, from death, or listen to this, from obscurity, inactivity, ruins, and non-existence. This is just the Greek here, folks. You need to parse it out. Is there obscurity, inactivity? Is there ruination? A feeling of non-existence? It's a wake up, lift up, rise again, rise up, rear up, stand up. And the first use of this, we always call the law of first rules, is the angel waking Joseph and saying, arise, take the young child and flee. It's get up, go, now. So there's a momentum in it. It's not just rise and stand there. It's movement. Getting it in gear. So sometimes we pivot around, but sometimes we just have to pivot up. And then we take the next step. Okay. Take up your bed. Just going to make a quick reference here. Krabatos, a mattress or bed, but this comment, our mental bed is the set of ideas that underlie our basic thinking and willing. These ideas are taken up when we rethink them, which is the definition of repent, or see them in a new way out of a desire to respond to the Lord's will. In other words, taking up your bed has to do with that whole thing of behaviors, comforts, and attitudes that have enabled us to stay there. Are y'all? Okay. It is. You got to pick that up, though. You got to see the stuff that's getting in the way. So I got to get a little bit candid here. God took me into this and into the pool, and sometimes He'll take me there, and everything kind of will disappear, and I'll just see that pool, and He'll start to speak into it. And at one point, then He took this pool because I could tell it was about a source of hope. And that source of hope has so often been, like I said, something to do with the church. My dad was a pastor. I watched a lot of damage from the church to my dad. I saw a lot of ways his dreams were hindered by that. I've seen a lot of ways where I've been cut to the quick by things. Doesn't mean they were all responsible. I did stupid things. They helped. So I'm going to read you a little bit. This is some of the word that God gave, just so you can get this. I was saying to him, I feel like I see the whole pool closes up, like a black tarp appears like molten plastic, or a giant black oil slick that covers the face of the pool and cuts it off as to any kind of option. That to which I had looked for deliverance has been sealed over, so that it is no longer an option. And what he'll just start to speak into it. And he said, stop looking at the pool. The pool is not for you. The pool never was for you. You looked for it for the wrong reason, but it served its purpose to prepare you for me. So you have to understand, sometimes that hope deferred is setting you up for the right time when Jesus steps into this guy's life. Later he says, you have looked out at that pool for so long, my son. You've looked with longing to get in at just the right time and the right way. You have thought that doing it this way in time issue was all about your efforts or getting the help of others. You have thought that the windows of my mercy were extremely tight and limiting. Such is not the cause. I have allowed you to feel hopeless so that you can speak life to those who feel this. My solution is to not get you into anything. It's me speaking to you, asking you the question that you really do not want to hear. It is simply a question of desire. Do you want to be free from the old paradigm of how this all works? So it continued for a while, but I'm going to just jump down to here. This is more what I heard. I need you to stop waiting for that pool to be stirred. I need you to want to leave the setting of the pool as the source of your hope. I need you to let me close off that door of what ifs. Okay? So, that door of hope. Door of hope. In other words, looking at that pool of some level of affirmation by the institutional church. It's going to say, wow, Stephen, God really gave you a great model. Come and da-da-da-da-da. Okay? And he's just been telling me. And I was asking him, how do I shut it down? And he said, by seeing that I have closed it. That I will not allow it because that is too limiting for what I have for you. Stop trying to go into the pool. The pool is not for you. There is more, and more is what I want to flow through you. You have no idea how radical a new thing it is that I have released from you. You want those in church to recognize that it is good. Those are not the ones for whom this is released. Now listen to this. The old pool is closed. It is closed. It is closed. Stop waiting for it to open up to you. It is closed. Get over it. You will not find healing by any level of acceptance by the old models. Stop trying to heal the hurt by going back to the place where you were wounded. The place of your wounding is not the place where you are healed. Not for you, not for this, not in this season. Stop trying to return to Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. He has a lot of humor with me, just so you know. Now listen to this, I'll wrap this up. Kansas was a place of black and white. This is him still speaking. And it is not where I have set you now. Going home was never my agenda for you. There's no healing in that place for you, only the reminder of the loss. You must stay in the land of brilliant color and not long for what you thought was home, but was only a place of isolation and pain. Pursue the future and stop trying to reconcile the past. Do not submit to the restraints of the old model by the old guard. I have called you to establish the new, so stop trying to fit into the old. And do not look with longing at the pool that is closed. That way is not your way. It is black and white, and I have called you to a place of color and mystery and danger and triumph. You are not in Kansas anymore. Release the hunger to go to that home, and let me show you the new place I have created for you. Do not rage at the pool or the past, but look to me as the future and the new way that I have set before you. Okay? So, the pool is closed. I know what my pool is. Do you know what yours is? The place where you keep kind of looking back for more hope, because it springs up for some people. And maybe it even maybe sort of worked one time, but it's closed now. You have to let it close. Pool's closed. Do you want to get well? Do you want to be whole? Or do you want to just sit there and look with longing at what maybe quoted, maybe should, divine lottery kind of thing? Cut it out. It's time to rise up. Take up your anchors of familiarity with where you were, pivot up, pivot out, and walk. It's just hard because we see something we think has worked or has worked for somebody else, like the pool, religion, showing up doing certain things, and we keep on betting on that, because the radicalness of Jesus to walk in and just say, I'm not putting a condition on here, I'm gonna pivot you. I'm just gonna give you a command. All you gotta do is do it. Rise up, take your bed, walk. And then he's out of there. Father, I ask now that you would make it very clear. So there's some of you now, I'm getting this, that you are really struggling with the word the pool is closed. Because you keep hoping that God's going to meet you back in that place. And I'm just you can go into John 5. But if you continue to hang there, you can't connect into where Jesus is going. Lord, I just say that we will pivot. We will pivot. We will lean back into thanks for what you've given us. We will lean forward into what you have promised. We will lay page by page by page by page by page. It won't be a heroic deed, but it will be quiet and it will be consistent and it will weave together a strength that will stun the world and stun us. How can this possibly be that a couple of phone books could lift a car or stop a couple of tractor trailers or any number of other things they've done? Page upon page upon page. Father, thank you for your faithfulness to us. Make this word come alive. The pool is closed. Time to rise, pack your bag, and walk. Amen.
I feel like I heard when you were saying the pool is closed, because if the pool is closed, and I really believe I heard the pool is closed, but the river is wide open.
Amen. There we go. Yes.